What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Tyler Stringfellow.
And we have got a great show in store for you today. On this episode, we will be previewing NBA free agency and predicting what we believe the Boston Celtics will do once it begins. After that, we'll look at two of the NBA's most polarizing players, Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook, opting into their deals with their current teams and examine what their future will look like. According to NBA insider Brian Windhorst, it may be a lot wilder than you could expect. And finally, we'll wrap things up by breaking down Baker Mayfield's response to a reporter when asked about the state of his relationship with the Cleveland Browns. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. Tyler, I'm glad to have you back on the show today, man. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic, Brian. How about yourself?
Tyler, I'm doing great. It's been a long week, but I'm, more than happy to have you back on discussing some sports news. I know you've been doing some stuff over the summer, as have I. But just in general, it's just glad to be back. Before we
busy. It's all.
But before we do get into anything though, we typically do this at the end of our shows, but before we begin, if you guys aren't following us yet on Down to the Wire, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you guys can find us.
Easy.
It's very easy. We have the video stream to this podcast on YouTube, and you can find all the links in our Instagram bio at down.to-the-wire on Instagram. Again, at down.to-the-wire on Instagram. We really appreciate your guys' support, and hope you guys can follow and support us. So, Tyler, whole lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, as big Celtics fans, we want to kick things off. Talking about Bradley Beal. Obviously, this was kind of the big golden goose moment that Celtics fans have been hoping for a while. It was kind of a will they, won't they situation with the Wizards. At this point, Bradley Beal has opted out of his deal with the Wizards and is going to become a free agent tomorrow. Technically, free agency doesn't start till July 6th, but with the way NBA free agency works, if he was to sign a deal tomorrow, we would know tomorrow. So that's when all the discussions begin. So
you're gonna see. You're right. You're gonna see just a lot of the guys. They're gonna get the contracts laid out. They're not gonna sign anything, but they are gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play for you." You're gonna get all the deals, and all the headlines are finally gonna come out. Once July 6th rolls around, all the guys are just gonna be putting ink to paper, and that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it at this point. So right now, obviously, there were reports coming out that the Celtics were the odds-on favorites to land Bradley Beal. According to other sources, Bradley Beal's already made up his mind on what he wants to do. He's basically said, all right, I know what I'm going to do, but none of you else know what I'm going to do. So
I respect that.
Yeah, I can respect it too, where his mind is made up. He thinks he already knows where he's going to go. Marcus Smart even came out and ended up saying, we think that our finals run helped change the culture in Boston and made us a much more appealing place for free agents to sign. So how do you feel about Bradley Beal entering free agency? Do you think the Celtics are going to be able to pounce and sign him?
I feel very good. One, because of his effort. And I say that because I'm a big believer in all these guys whining and crying like, I want this money. Oh, I want to go to this team. I want to do this. There have been a lot of reports about Bradley Beal wanting to go to these places, but I can't recall off the top of my head him going out and publicly saying anything. Or, maybe him getting an interview and him like kind of being around the bush with the question, kind of hinting at it that he doesn't want to be with the Wizards. He never made it publicly known what his intentions were. And I credit that because he's not making a big media spectacle out of it. He's being like, all right, you know what? In his head, obviously he doesn't want to be there. In his head, he's like, all right, I don't want to be here. I'm going to wait till I can make the decision myself, and he has, but he's been playing the whole time. What is like people like Kyrie Irving he's being a bum. He's a bum. James Harden is a bum. They're like playing it's like they're playing pickup ball at recess. They're not trying. They're not giving 100% effort. These are two guys who were considered MVP contenders at one point in their careers, and now they're not trying. Bradley Beal's given 100% effort every single time, and unless he's been injured. And I think that's huge for the Boston Celtics to acquire a guy like that, because you got these young guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Robert Williams that are coming up. They're starting to find themselves, and they're going to start wanting these massive contracts. And they're going to see guys like James Harden and, Kyrie Irving who are like going to just start whining, and they like, it's my way, the highway. But Bradley Beal is going to be one of those guys that could possibly come in and just be like, no, like you don't want to cause a scene. If you want to leave, then leave. But don't make it a big media spectacle. Let your game do the talking. Bradley Beal's been doing that. And I think that he would be just a huge asset here because you got, if you throw Bradley Beal in, you got Bradley Beal, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and then you got Robert Williams and Al Horford coming off the bench. Whoo! I love it. I love that lineup because I love Al Horford not being a star. He's a little old, but we need that veteran experience and that veteran talent on the bench. I think a game changer, complete game changer for his play, Al Horford. So I think Bradley Beal would be great for Al Horford specifically.
Yeah, I think obviously Bradley Beal will be, if he was to come to the Celtics, would be nothing but a positive. I mean, I saw someone make a comparison, and the more and more I think about it, the truer it really becomes. And it was that, Bradley Beal with his whole situation with Washington, he's essentially the Matthew Stafford of the NBA, where he's putting up all these he's having amazing performances, but just for a team that is never going to really be able to, show him, that decency and grace and allow him to, prosper.
Yeah. I know. I can agree with that.
And honestly, I feel like you put Bradley Beal on a team that has those pieces, and he's going to really just elevate his game to a whole nother level. I think, the connection that he has with Jason Tatum, obviously they're both from Louisville. I think Jason Tatum has said a couple times.
I think they're both in St. Louis. I think it's St. Louis.
Oh, did I say Louisville? Yeah, I meant to say St. Louis. So
you're chilling. You're chilling.
Yeah. So they're both from St. Louis. They have that connection there. And, I think that's only going to bode well if the Celtics are to get him. So, he's in the prime of his career right now. He's 29 years old. So I think it's perfect. I think it's a great opportunity for us to strike and get him.
So you mentioned his age, 29. A lot of people see 29. They're like, all right, maybe he's starting to fizzle out a little bit. But no, this is the exact prime of his career. He's going to be entering his 30s. Obviously, he just turned 29.
Yeah.
So he's in perfect place because the Celtics want to win now. Throw Bradley because they were just in the finals. They've proven that they're a win now team, and that's huge because a lot of these free agents want a team that wants to win right now.
Yeah.
And you throw Bradley Beal on the team, boom, perfect situation. But I think it's a perfect situation for Bradley Beal because the Boston Celtics have the young talent. They have some veteran presence, which is, you're covering both ends of the basketball world there. You got a great head coach, Ime Udoka, just honestly in my head was a coach of the year candidate. And I'm pretty sure he wasn't.
Yeah, I think the reason he got knocked out of that is because of the bad start.
Yeah, but completely turn around and great coach, great piece for this year and just great in for the future. But then you go to the Boston Celtics team, really look at them, and you're like, this front office, man, the ownership, the GM, Brad Stevens is just it's perfect. They definitely know what they're doing when it comes to basketball IQ. It is the entire organization's IQ is through the roof. I can guarantee the freaking trainers could make a trade right now. That's how just deep I feel like the Celtics are. And I think that's even more appealing than just players because you can have all this great talent and all this, and you maybe don't have the best coach and your front office is just awful. And sometimes you look at them and I'm like, okay, do I really want to get mixed in with these guys? The talent's there, but can the coach and can the front office put the pieces around me and make the pieces work together instead of just going out and getting the biggest names possible, going out and just, I'm going to sign James Harden because he's James Harden. I'm going to sign Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving because they're them. No, I want to get these guys because they're going to fit our team and what we want to do. And I think the Celtics are a team that does that more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean the Celtics obviously have, they're really good at trying to finding players that fit their scheme. Obviously, last year they kind of had some hiccups with that, with guys like Dennis Schroeder not really fitting in, but
Josh Richardson.
Yeah, but what was remarkable about this team is that they were able to then put in pieces that fit that scheme. So they are able to recognize what fits with their team and what doesn't. And I think that Bradley Beal would slide in this team nicely. He would be a great addition to this team. And frankly, I think, it could worry me about what that's going to mean for Marcus Smart. Obviously, I think that would probably move him to the bench at this point. There's just some questions about what would go on with size at that point.
So if you put, because I like the Marcus Smart, Bradley Beal, Tatum Brown, Williams rotation.
I don't mind that as an offensive rotation, Tyler. That's fine.
Mhm.
That's fine for me. But chances are on the defensive end, Jason Tatum's playing the 4. And I just don't know how I feel that the only issue is I just don't know how I feel about Jason Tatum playing the 4 and actually having to go against legit power forwards. That's the only concern for me. If you want a starting 5, it's going to be, a relatively undersized starting 5 minus Robert Williams. But
even then, he's still a little undersized.
Yeah, and he's not like this Goliath either. He's still relatively on the smaller side for a center. He'd almost be a decent power forward size.
Mhm.
But that is something that's concerning to me, is the size, how this team would match up defensively. Obviously, we were the best defensive team in the NBA last year, regardless of our size, but I still think that could be in it. I still feel like that could impact us.
I could honestly see, and this is kind of a bold statement, but I could honestly see the Celtics trading maybe Marcus Smart or completely going a different route and not even getting Bradley Beal, even though there's reports that he wants to come here and that there's mutual interest and stuff like that. Maybe they're just like, no, and they get a center, and you can move Robert Williams to I'm not big into the positions. I'm just kind of like, let's just throw the best players on the floor.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean.
No, yeah,
maybe get like a Miles Turner, something like Miles Turner. I think would fit perfectly. You got a really big.
Yeah, I think Miles Turner would fit great here as well. I agree with you too. I think basketball is becoming more positionless. I think it's not really about whether you can play the position like how it was made, back in the 60s and play it to a T. It's just for me a matter of, are you going to get bodied out there? That's the only issue for me. Is Jason Tatum going to get bodied down low and get embarrassed on the defensive end? That's the only thing for me. I mean, he did a good job, guarding the positions that he did last year, but having to face legit big men down low, I don't know how that's going to bode for him.
I can see where you're coming from, but the problem is something I can see happening is maybe the front office and the coaching sitting down with like Tatum and Brown and just being like, all right, one of you guys has got to like bulk up this summer. Like, you guys really need to put some meat on and start on your bones and really start lifting and start playing very similar and doing similar to what Giannis did when he was young. Put on all this meat, and now he's bodying people, and you get hit, you get ran over by Giannis. That's just gonna hurt.
Yeah,
like, he's huge now. And then if you go for Bradley Beal, you can throw Beal, Smart, Tatum, and Brown and Williams and feel very comfortable because you're like, all right, Tatum and Brown, if they need to take somebody that's a little bit bigger than them, they can, and they can withstand it, and they can really. The skill's already there, but it's more their size. I mean, will their size match up? So I can see that maybe being a plan, but I do really think the Celtics need to sit down and work out a deal. If they're all in on Bradley Beal, what dominoes will fall because of Bradley Beal, and in what order do we need to figure this out? And I think that could be a huge thing, making those two bulk up a little bit, because if they both do, huge win. But if one of them does, you feel a little bit more comfortable. And I can see more Jaylen Brown doing that than Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown maybe putting on a couple extra pounds of muscle, and just being able to, body through some people, because I think that would be great for him, for his game. And being on the defensive end and being able to withstand some of those charges from people like Giannis, LeBron, that have a little bit more meat on them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a strategy that could work, but we're obviously going to have to see what happens there. But let's just say in the instance that the Celtics do get Bradley Beal, in your mind, is Bradley Beal enough to take the Celtics over the top and win a championship?
I mean, that's a great question. And honestly, I can say probably about 90% yes, because of his motivation. He'll finally be out of Washington and be like, all right, perfect. I'm in a winning organization that's been there, and this group of guys was there.
Yes.
Let's do it again. Let's run it back, and let's go all in this time. And I think if you match just his game, and honestly, I'm not a big believer. We all know Bradley Beal can play. Yeah. Bradley Beal can play 100%. I'm not worried about that. I'm a big believer, and you've definitely noticed I like the effort, the how he talks to his teammates, how he is around his teammates. I mean, you look at the team like the Spurs. I saw a video the other day. Tony Parker was talking to Popovich, and he said something, and Popovich points over to the bench. He's like go, and Parker pulls up a chair, sits down with the whole team, and goes, huddle around, and he's making plays and doing all these things. That's a player.
Yeah.
You want. I think Bradley Beal could join something like that. He's got the knowledge. He's been in this league for a pretty decent amount of time. And then you throw in Al Horford, and these guys are going to mix. These guys are just going to mix. I think they all want to win. And honestly, I think Bradley Beal would be able to adopt the thing where it's like, all right, you're not going to take the last shot. Whoever's open is taking the last shot. Who has the best look is taking the last shot. Because that's what Ime Udoka really put into these guys this year. I mean, before it was all, Horford wanted to take the shot. Tatum wanted to take the shot. Brown wanted to take the shot. Smart wanted to take the frickin' shot. And at one point, Robert Williams was going to pull up for a three for a game winner. Like, no. Jason Tatum's got a wide open look. Derek White's got this wide open look. Give it to him. Pritchard's got a wide open look. Bradley Beal, you got the wide open look. We're going to kick it out to you. Go for that win. But if you're open, if you're not, you really need to pass it. And it showed when the Celtics beat the Bucks on the game-winning layup. But I'm pretty sure it was the Bucks.
It was the Nets.
Nets, my bad. Round before. But the Nets. I mean, Marcus Smart had a pretty decent look, and normally he would pull up. No, he didn't. He faked it, hit Tatum coming into the paint, easy layup, boom, game winner. That's textbook basketball right there. Yeah. I think Beal would fit perfectly into the Celtics rotation if he can adopt that. And if he can't, I think he's going to struggle a lot because that idea around this whole team really pushed them to the finals.
Yeah. Listen, Tyler, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say something similar. And I do agree that Bradley Beal will, put the Celtics in obviously better in a better situation to win a championship. Yes. But it's going to be more for what he's just physically bring to the team. Obviously, he's going to bring his numbers. He's going to be, that 20 plus per game score. He's going to be, an efficient 3-point specialist. But what he's going to bring to the team isn't going to be seen in what he does on the court. It's also going to be seen in what Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum do, because in their minds, they just went out there, they worked their tails off to get to the NBA finals, and they fell short. They just couldn't come together, and they fell short in 6 games. But by bringing in a superstar of Bradley Beal's capacity, it's going to show to them that Brad Stevens and Ime Udoka have their backs. They're going to see the reinforcements coming over that hill, and they're going to say, wow, these guys believe in us because they're bringing in this guy. They're bringing in this guy, and they trust us to go out there and win this championship. So it's going to, I think, reinvigorate Jason Tatum. It's going to reinvigorate Jaylen Brown and make them say, all right, we won it bad last year. We are dying for it this year. So we're going to go out there. We are going to give it our all. And now we have this superstar around us as well, who's going to help us even more get to that championship pedigree. So it's going to help even guys like Marcus Smart, Rob Williams, just the fact of him now being in the room and the fact that the Celtics were willing to go out there and do this. There are plenty of Celtics teams that, they just didn't make these types of moves where, they just kind of got little plug and place moves, very similar to last season after they got swept by Brooklyn. I mean, they got a couple pieces. Dennis Schroeder seemed like it was a steal of a move. There were other moves that people were like, wow, this could really be something.
Josh Richardson.
Yeah. And it was like, all right, these are nice complementary pieces, but it was just like, all right, yeah, the Celtics are just still building towards something. If they're able to go out and get Bradley Beal, it shows them, hey, we thought we were right there. We didn't think we got embarrassed. We think we're right there. And we think that, bringing this guy in the building at this point, we think it could be a lock for us to get that championship. So I think it really increases our odds of making it back to the finals. Obviously, the road through the NBA playoffs is a tough one. You have to go through that whole gambit all over again. So who knows what that means, but yeah, I really like the Celtics odds if we can get Bradley Beal.
I do like that, but I really want to talk about just the Celtics really focusing on players that are going to complement the current ones that they have.
Yes.
No, like you mentioned, they got Dennis Schroeder and Josh Richardson. Those guys didn't really complement Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They were kind of like almost like a knockoff version of those guys. And you plug them in at the beginning of the year and you really notice it doesn't go well for either side. I mean, they weren't playing. Schroeder, he turned down a Lakers deal and then nobody wanted to sign him. He's like, all right, screw it. I'm going to take the 1-year deal from Boston. And then we ended up trading him. And then we ended up trading Josh Richardson, who both ended up doing a lot better on their respected teams. And then you go out and get a guy like Derek White. Derek White came off the bench during the playoffs and was freaking spectacular. He was way more than what a lot of people thought he was going to add to this team. He added just a lot of leadership, a lot of shooting, great defensive play, and a great basketball IQ in general. And then I think if you add a guy like Bradley Beal, who is all around great at basketball, I can't really think of anything that he does poorly. And I think that's kind of the type of player that the Boston Celtics need. Tatum and Brown sometimes they can be very iffy on like defense. I think if you just add a guy like him who's just got a little bit more awareness, I think that'll just boost this team to a whole nother level. And like I mentioned, locker room presence, I just think is huge for championship winning teams.
Yeah.
And I think he's definitely going to add to that. And because that's where it all starts. I mean, where does the game start? The game starts in the locker room. You guys, they're all in the locker room together. And if there's a little tension, you're going to have problems. And this year they really addressed that with the current team. And just, I really think he's just a great addition to the Boston Celtics if we ended up getting him at the right price. I mean, I don't want to overpay for a guy that, comes from Washington. I want them to really, really know and do their homework on will Bradley Beal be a great complement to Tatum, Brown, Smart, Horford, and Williams.
Yeah, obviously we're gonna have to wait and see what happens there. We are less than 12 hours away at this point. So by the time some of you guys were watching this episode, the fate of Bradley Beal may already be decided. So maybe we're dead wrong, maybe we aren't. So we're gonna have to see how that goes. But that leads us to jumping into the next topic in NBA news. And Tyler, I guess all's well that ends well. And I can't think of a better way to describe that than with the situation that happened in Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving. Because my God, was that kind of a disaster. That was a dumpster fire in Brooklyn. And you know what? I had my hopes up that Kyrie Irving was going to torch another franchise. I guess third time's a charm. I mean, the fact that, he didn't tear this one to the ground just yet. So obviously, in case you missed it, Kyrie Irving opted into the final year of his 4-year contract. He's due to make $37 million in 2022. That is a lot of money. And there were talks that Kyrie Irving, was trying to get a long-term deal with the Brooklyn Nets. Apparently that was his desired goal. The Nets did not want to give him a long-term extension because they just don't really know how committed Kyrie Irving is going to be to the team. Obviously, he missed a lot of time last year to being unvaccinated, was not able to play at Barclays Center. Obviously, outside situations there influencing play on the court.
Ego.
And certain things there. So obviously, he's now coming back to play with KD. It looks like this is all but settled. However, I was going through ESPN today, and it doesn't seem to be the case. Now, I believe things are going to be back. So in the case that he is back, what do you expect from Brooklyn next year, Tyler?
So the bridge that you see behind me currently, this side's Kyrie Irving and this side is the Brooklyn Nets. Do you see one?
No.
Exactly. He burned that bridge because that bridge is completely gone based off solely because reports came out, he doesn't want to play in Brooklyn anymore. And he literally had an interview like that same night, and he was like, I don't want to talk about that, and was making it a big scene, and 100% made it look like he didn't want to play in Brooklyn. And then he goes and does this. I'm going to opt into my contract. Yeah, Kevin Durant's basically already has got half his gigantic foot out the door.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Brooklyn's front office is done with this. And him opting in, I'm pretty sure makes it easier for them to find a trade. I believe I saw that report.
There's an idea that now Kyrie Irving will probably be looked at as more of a rental rather than as purchase. So what the idea was before is that if Kyrie Irving was to explore the trade market, it would be as a sign-in trade, meaning that, the other team would be able to pay him a max contract, and then the Nets could then trade him to that team and the team that would acquire Kyrie Irving would get him on a max deal. Now the team that would acquire him will get him on this 1-year contract. So if there's a team maybe like the LA Clippers, obviously they got John Wall recently, but say they were to make him into a 6-man, say they needed a point guard and we're like, all right, we're willing to get Kyrie Irving here. We want him really badly on this team, but we only want to try it out for a year. They can bring him in on this $37 million deal. Give it a shot. So that's something
what scares me is his ego.
Yeah, no, that's something to be very scared about. Now, I just don't know how that's going to work out with a trade. Obviously, what I was hinting at was the Lakers still could be interested in Kyrie Irving. Brian Windhorst of ESPN ended up saying that, if basically if that bridge that is already burned between the Nets and Kyrie, collapses into the abyss, then essentially these trade talks could be reopened. And it would most likely involve Russell Westbrook, who also opted into his deal. Now, his deal somehow is even more ludicrous because he's going to be making $47.1 million in 2022.
Oh my God.
After the horrendous season he had. I mean, honest to God, kudos to Russ, man. I kind of got to give it to him because he's like, all right, I had this horrendous season. Everyone hates my guts right now. Hell yeah, I'm going to opt into this contract. I mean, I'm not going to get a better offer anywhere else. Thank you, LA.
I can't stand, and I really want to group these guys in together because I hate them because they're all three of them are in the news right now. But I cannot stand Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. They stink. Those three need to be on a team and let me know how all three of those egos work. RIP to that team, because that team and that organization would have to file for bankruptcy because they stink. All three have the biggest egos in the world. They're bigger than my freaking room. And it's ridiculous. They all want this big amount of money, and then when they don't get their way, they're whining and crying. They're not playing well. James Harden, I'm pretty sure, put on 100 pounds while he was playing for God knows what. Or no, when he was in Houston, right after when he left from Houston to Brooklyn, he weighed like freaking 300 pounds. He looked like Charles Barkley out there, and it was ridiculous. And you got Russell Westbrook playing like crap. Oh, I deserve all this money. No, you don't. You stink. You got I demand a trade. No, you stink. You don't have that right. Kyrie Irving, he's been on 3 teams, and he's burned all 3.
Yeah.
And when he didn't burn the Boston one because Boston burned him even a little harder because he's public enemy number 1 here. Nobody likes him here.
Yeah.
And all 3 are in the news.
Yeah.
And all 3 are going to end up on different teams. And if I'm the NBA and if I'm any NBA team, I'm not signing or trading Westbrook. I'm not signing or trading Kyrie Irving. And I'm not signing or trading James Harden, because James Harden also, as a matter of fact, declined his player option and is now going to be an unrestricted free agent. So he now gets to pick and choose where he goes. Yeah. So all 3 are very interesting. Will the Lakers stay with Russell Westbrook? Will the Nets stay with Kyrie Irving, even though both those players opted into their contracts? And then who knows what to witness from James Harden? But I don't like all those 3 players, but it's going to be very interesting what happens with them. Will they still be on the same teams? Will the 76ers give him a new contract, James Harden? And it blows my mind. I really don't know where these guys fit at all.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I never want Kyrie Irving to ever get his way, but in this instance, I kind of do want him to get traded to the LA Lakers. Simply because if Russell Westbrook is in the returning trade package, that means Russell Westbrook, in effect, would have to play for the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant. That is hilarious to me.
Keep going.
So that is hilarious to me, and I really hope that this actually does go through as a trade deal, because people will be kind of, making fun of Kyrie, but people are completely ignoring that storyline that if freaking Russell Westbrook gets traded to the Nets, he's going back and partnering up with Kevin Durant.
Oh
there is a fight. Day 1 of that happening, there is a fight happening in that locker room. I cannot wait if that happens.
I I
am praying to
cannot
God that this happens. I never want Kyrie Irving to get his way, but please, the basketball gods once just bless us and do it. Yeah, send him out with LeBron James. Okay, cool. That reunion could actually, maybe lead to something. But Russell Westbrook and KD running it back like it's OKC, baby. Please give me that. I would love that.
I want to touch on the Kyrie Irving LeBron real quick. You said that would be a great combination.
I mean, listen, I think
I don't think so anymore.
I think it'd be a better combo than KD and Russell Westbrook.
Nope, I think they're roughly the same. Solely because, not because of LeBron. I hate LeBron, but he's still the best, second best player in the league right now. Now, you throw LeBron is LeBron. LeBron is the face of the NBA. He's been the face of the NBA since he came in as a rookie. He's got all these accolades. He's a guaranteed future Hall of Famer, and he's obviously one of the greatest of all time. And he's in that conversation, or he is on the Mount Rushmore of basketball players ever to play this game. I hate him, but that's a fact. Now, you got Kyrie Irving, who also thinks he's on the Mount Rushmore, and he's not even close. He can't even see the damn thing. So you throw a guy in like that now he's got that ego. When they played in Cleveland, Kyrie didn't have that ego. Now he's got that big ego. Oh, I can do this. I can do this better than just like you, if not better than you. You're going to throw on LeBron. That's LeBron's team. No matter what team LeBron goes to, it's his team. And I understand that. He's the best, one of the best players ever to play. That's like joining Kobe. That's Kobe's team. Now, I think they would probably end up butting heads because LeBron's gonna be like, I want it done my way. My way has won championships. I've done it on all three teams I've been a part of. And he's right. Kyrie Irving, what's Kyrie Irving done? You might have to bleep this out. What was he done? Bitched and moaned the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to work. You shook your head. I would love to hear what you think. But honestly, I think the egos would get in the way.
So this is why I think that Kyrie and LeBron would be a better reunion than KD and Russ. And, frankly, it just has to do with this. Obviously, I think Kyrie Irving, ever since he left Cleveland, has been inhaling too much of that sage that he likes to spray around arenas now before games. I think that's probably issue number one. I think that he's just ridiculous now in terms of ego, in terms of just his entire mentality now. But let's face it, he can still cross over the best of them. Like, he still has tremendous talent. So yeah, could he butt heads with LeBron James? Sure. Would things be a little awkward at first? Yeah. But I think that chemistry could pay off pretty well. I don't know if Russell Westbrook and KD will survive in the same locker room together. That's how worried I am about that. And two, Russell Westbrook just cannot play basketball anymore. And the NBA isn't even giving him his flowers for that. They lowered him down to a 79 overall last year in 2K because of it. They do not respect what this man has left anymore. I get that he is a former MVP. I get that he used to average a triple-double. He does not do that anymore. He is a walking brick. So I can't say it any better. He's a walking brick. I'm sorry. You could build an entire gated community with the amount of bricks that he is tossing up on a day-to-day basis. So I'm sorry. I just don't think that, in my mind, if you put two good basketball players together and one good basketball player and one guy that just can't do it anymore, I'm going to take the two good basketball players. That's just math for me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
That's just my ideas of that. But obviously,
I'm not about the egos. And I think these teams really need to start considering these because a lot of these players' egos are getting too big for their wrong reasons. I mean, how many players in this league can really have an ego? I can just give you three.
Cool.
And LeBron.
Okay.
Actually, I can give you four. I can give you LeBron. I can give you Steph Curry. I can give you Giannis. And I can give you Kawhi Leonard. What do all four of those players have in common?
Championship.
They've all won the championship as the best player by far on their teams.
Yeah.
LeBron did win championships with Wade and Bosh, but how close are their skill sets to LeBron's? Not really that close. Granted, Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade are two of the best players to ever play. Hall of Famers. But they're nowhere near LeBron's level. Kyrie Irving's nowhere near LeBron's level. Steph won with Kevin Durant, but he's won way more without Kevin Durant than with Kevin Durant. And actually, no, he's won the same. Either way, but he's won twice without him, and he's been the star player by far. Giannis, who was on that Bucks roster? I mean, we can tell you because it just happened. Easily by far the best player. Who was the best player on the Toronto Raptors when they won? Kawhi Leonard, by a long shot. When Kawhi Leonard is healthy, he's probably one of the best players in this league. And those four are allowed to have massive egos because they backed it up. They'll continue to back it up. And Kevin Durant really can't do that. He's won championships alongside Steph Curry. And Kyrie Irving can't really do that. He's won a championship alongside LeBron.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you make a good point, but obviously, I don't know how those situations are going to resolve themselves. Obviously, I know certain players have egos, and it's something that, you have to look at. But I think that with that being said, Tyler, I want to kind of move on to something else in NBA news that's pretty pressing. And it is a recent trade that actually just went through. Adrian Wojnarowski came out and reported it, and was that Spurs guard Dejounte Murray is getting traded to the Atlanta Hawks. He's going to join up with Trae Young, and the Spurs are going to get Danilo Gallinari, 3 future first-round picks, and a future first-round pick swap. So, the Hawks are a very interesting team next year. I'm just going to say that.
This is huge. Yeah. Huge. This
is a great move for them. Obviously, Trae Young, similar to if the Celtics were to go out and get Bradley Beal to prove to Tatum and Brown, this is the Hawks saying to Trae Young, hey, man, we trust you. We're getting a guy. Yeah, we are getting someone now to help you out even more and help us push ourselves over the edge. Obviously, the Hawks are still, I think, an up-and-coming franchise. They're still on the rise, but this is a great step for them.
This is really telling Trae Young, hey, you're that dude. You're the guy, man. You can be guys like Kawhi Leonard. We believe Giannis, LeBron, Steph Curry, the guys with the egos. We believe you can be one of those guys and take our team to the next level with these pieces around you. And they're putting the pieces around him, and my goodness, are they going to win? They're going to have Trae Young, Dejounte Murray, and then let's see, John Collins, Clint Capella, and Barjanovic.
Yeah, that's a great young core.
That's just a great core, let alone young. But that core, like you said, young. That core, if they win, they're going to win for a while.
Yeah, that is what makes them interesting, as to where I think the Celtics out of the East could be the next team to really take that step forward. But the Hawks essentially are where the Celtics are maybe 3-4 years ago, to where they're now getting some of these up and coming stars. And it's like, hey, in that 3-4 years time, watch out for them, because they are going to be dangerous.
Yes. But who is the team to beat in the East?
At this point, it's the Celtics, but you got to watch out for the Bucks. You got to watch out for a lot of other teams too. So I would give it to the Celtics just because they were in the finals, but watch out for Milwaukee. I think the Hawks, they're going to make things interesting now. They're going to be a wild card team. Maybe they could knock off a team like Boston or Milwaukee if they get hot towards the end of the year. So that's another obstacle. That's another obstacle for the Celtics to look forward to.
See, so, I like that. I like how they can really now compete with the likes of Milwaukee and Boston. I really think the team to beat is the Bucks, solely because putting Chris Middleton back into that lineup is just huge. And it takes a lot of stress off of Giannis, because he's got that guy I know can make shots. 100% make shots. If he's wide open, boom. He can easily knock down a wide open 3 and a contested 3. And what happens if you start guarding Middleton a little bit more? Well, there's going to be a little bit more room for Giannis to start destroying you in the paint. And it's going to be game over. But I think Boston got over that little hump this year, so they're definitely up there. But I think they're definitely a 2, and I think this soars Atlanta all the way up to a number 3. And if you rank them, I got Atlanta at number 3, and 1, 2, and 3 are easily just like championship caliber, ready to compete. And I think that if they work with this young core in Atlanta next year, boom, these guys, you have to start considering these guys as championship contenders, because they can really, if they make a name for themselves, it's going to be over, because they're young and they're very hungry. I know Dejounte Murray came from the Spurs. The Spurs were one of the greatest organizations ever to play basketball, and one of the greatest probably greatest coach of all time. And he's hungry. He's like, okay, I got a little sniff of what it's like to win, because I was with these guys that have done it before and have proven it. And it's more just he was with the organization, and he knew what it took at that kind of level. And he's like, all right, these guys were telling me how to act, and how Tim Duncan and Tony Parker, how those guys are acting. Can I carry that over to this team? And then that's going to impact their play. They're going to start knocking down threes. They're going to start getting John Collins in paint. I really don't think they should trade him. And I really think they should keep him for this year, at least one more year.
Yeah.
To see if these pieces are really it. And if they aren't it, then you're like, all right, well, we're going to keep Dejounte Murray. We're going to move on from Collins. And I think that's what they should do if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that you make a good point with that. And, I know you just said Greg Popovich is probably one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. And, I agree with you. He's a fantastic coach. I think 5 championships for him, 4 or 5 at this point. So he's had himself an incredible career. He's 73 years old, though, at this point. And my fear, though, at this point is, with all the success that he had, I'm really starting to think that he's going to turn into the NBA's equivalent of Tom Landry. And, and for people who may not know too much about Tom Landry, Landry was the coach of the Cowboys in the 60s and 70s, ended up coaching until 1988, actually. And in his final, and, had a very storied career with the Cowboys, but in his final year, right before he got fired, he went 3-13. And, at that point, the team had been looking like they were, starting to kind of taper off towards the end. And, eventually owner Jerry Jones stepped in. His first move as the owner was he fired this historic coach, and, he ended up bringing in, new staff. They completely refreshed the team, and they ended up winning, a bunch of those Super Bowls that kind of started off that 90s dynasty that they ended up having. It caught a lot of flack at first, but, I see this with Greg Popovich. I see him now just having to rebuild another team. And in my mind at this point, I'm just like, how much longer is he going to stick around? I'm not saying that he'll ever be fired. I think what Jerry Jones did was, kind of, historic for what he ended up doing. Yeah. I don't think Greg Popovich is ever going to be fired from the Spurs, but at this point, man, I just don't know why he's sticking around as long as he is.
I can see that. I really think he should consider moving up.
Yeah.
In the organization. Bradley Stevens did that. So similar to Brad Stevens, but obviously Brad is younger. Did
you just call him Bradley Stevens?
Yeah, I did. My bad. I was hoping nobody picked up on that.
Of course.
Anyway, I fixed myself. I corrected myself. Okay. Anyway, so I think you should consider that. Maybe working more at the front office. Maybe a little bit. Maybe definitely still coaching a little bit. Obviously, why wouldn't you listen to the greatest coach of all time? So, you get him, and then you slowly start to fizzle him out of the rotation and be like, no, dude, we're not just cutting you off. Like, you get out of here. Like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. We want to set you up and help. We want you to help us set up for the next generation. And that is keeping you around, but getting a new head coach in, getting a whole new system in. We want you to help us work around it and get back to that level. I think that'll should definitely be in consideration for him and for the organization, because I know Tim Duncan still hangs around. I mean, he's one of the greatest players. I think definitely he should definitely be in the consideration for like the Mount Rushmore in the NBA, and he's not, and I think it's kind of rubbish. But he's been given some input specifically for these young players. His team and everyone he played with is gone, but he's got that knowledge that he's brought that organization to win. He wants to teach these guys, this young group, this is what we did. But you guys can add a little bit of that to your game and make it even more unique than what it already is. And I think Greg Popovich could definitely add to that.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point with that. I don't always agree with moving the coach up into the front office role.
No.
You can see some current ideas, some current aspects of it in other sports where it's not working. Obviously, Bill Belichick, the GM, historically just isn't that good as a GM. Great head coach, GM, it's kind of meh, kind of hit or miss, to be honest with you. Another example of it, which kind of went really badly, was Phil Jackson. I mean, you want to talk about great coaches. One of the greatest coaches to ever do it. I mean, won 11 championships, 6 with the Bulls, 5 with the Lakers. Got to coach both Jordan and Kobe Bryant. So you don't get much better than that. And the New York Knicks reached out to him and said, "Hey, we want to bring you in as an executive. We want you to be the president of our basketball operations." And he stunk up the joint in New York. I mean, you can literally remember.
It was bad.
I mean, there is the infamous clip now of Stephen A. Smith talking about Phil Jackson's tenure with the Knicks. And he literally says his first action was to sign Lamar Odom. Tyler, would you like to finish the line?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Wait, do you not remember the line?
No.
Really? Oh my God. How do you not remember that line?
Oh no. Am I being called out for not knowing enough?
I'm playing it now. Yep. I'm playing it. And here we go.
I'm gonna do you a favor, brother. I'm gonna leave it to you because if it comes out of my mouth, and I sit up there and I literally articulate the stuff that this man has done since he has been the executive of the New York Knicks, I'm gonna lose my mind. I ain't gonna be able to do the rest of the show. I'm telling you right now, it comes out of my mouth. I'm not gonna be able to control myself because I'm barely able to right now. I'm gonna try to keep my composure.
A few moments later.
His very first move as the executive was to sign Lamar Odom, who was on crack.
Do you remember that line now? Yeah, there we go. I knew you were gonna remember that line. Yeah, that was where that.
God.
That was where that clip originated from. It was because of how bad Phil Jackson's tenure was with the New York Knicks. That infamous Stephen A. clip is just a little piece of how bad Phil Jackson's time was with the Knicks. I mean, he stunk. He stunk up the joint there. He stunk up the joint. And it was atrocious there. Yeah. So I just don't know how I feel about elevating Greg Popovich to a CEO level. Maybe have him maybe if he has like a really hands-off approach and he isn't like, controlling every single move, I might be all right with it. But if he's making legit decisions, and I just don't know.
I think it would have to be, say they hired this guy named Phil. We'll just go Phil. We'll say Phil. We'll say they name this guy Phil as their head coach, and he really wants to make a small, he wants to go with smaller players. So similar to what the Celtics have, smaller rotation as their starting group. And Popovich, it could be sitting there being like, no, you need to do this. And I think that would be obviously awful, but I think it should be like, embrace it. Okay, well, let me take my knowledge that I have and let's help you build that. I think that's what he should be able to do. Like, all right, well, these players are going to fit because this player fits this guy. This guy complements him. He's defense. This guy's definitely a shooter. If he's there, he's going to be there. And I think that's definitely more of what you need. And I think that he can hopefully, if he was elevated to more of a front office, do that. But you would obviously have to wait and see if that would ever happen. But I would sure hope that that's how it would go down. All right.
Yeah.
You want to run this way? All right. I see you, bro. Now let's get this guy and let's get this guy. And we'll put both on this team and we'll rock the whole NBA's world with the amount of championships we get. I think that would help.
I mean, the other thing I'll say too is I also wouldn't mind the idea of having Popovich in there, just as a guy to like recruit in free agents, like still have him, in the organization enough to be like, hey man, this is why you should come play with the Spurs. Obviously, they're going to be a couple of years out before they're really recruiting guys to come play for San Antonio. But when that day comes, I think it would help to have Pop in the building for that. Obviously, both sides of the deal, it looks like are relatively happy with what they got. The San Antonio is going to be able to, really build for the future, while Atlanta is going to be able to gun for it right now. So
some draft picks, draft capital.
For a lot of people, they're considering it a win-win for both teams. Obviously, we're gonna have to see, how valuable those picks are and what goes on with that. But I want to switch things up before we do end of the show, and I want to jump into some NFL news. There's only one point that's really sticking out to me right there, and it's that Baker Mayfield, was talking to reporters recently. I know Baker Mayfield. Yeah, his name is finally entering back into the news. Obviously, hasn't been in a ton of State Farm commercials lately. He's been kind of put on the sidelines a little bit, figuratively and literally. Obviously, the Browns, traded for Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to even try to get into his whole situation right there. When whatever ruling comes down, however that goes, we'll touch upon it at that point. But frankly, I don't want to touch that situation with a 10-foot pole.
I wouldn't.
But for the sake of Baker Mayfield, obviously he's kind of left out in the dust right now. It's not likely what's going to happen there, but he was recently talking to reporters and said that, while a reconciliation isn't totally out of the question for the Browns, he would want Cleveland to reach out first. He's not going to try to extend an offer at this point. He wants them to do any deal, but he basically ended up saying that he's kind of just fine with both sides, moving on at this point. He said that, he's ready to explore a new option, if/when he's traded, and just go from there. If you're Baker Mayfield, yeah. So I mean, frankly, I never used to be that big on Baker. I was kind of just like, I kind of had it out for Baker, but now I kind of feel bad for him. And I frankly want him to get the opportunity to really prove himself again because of just how badly Cleveland's treated him. I mean,
trash. They treat him like trash.
Your organization has been gutter trash for the past freaking 50 years. You guys barely ever come alive. This man was able to lead you to the playoffs. You guys drafted this man number 1 overall, and now you're just throwing him to the side. I know you saw like this great new asset in Deshaun Watson. Obviously, I'm not going to get in. Obviously, I don't want to get into the situation of what he's going through right now. But personally, as a player, I get that you saw him as a upgrade. But to treat this guy like this and throw him out is ridiculous. I know the NFL is a business, but still, I would show a little bit more class. For Baker Mayfield, though, I don't know what his situation is going to look like. I know the Carolina Panthers are reportedly interested. In my mind, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I would look to try to get to the Seattle Seahawks because you got a great core of guys right there. And Drew Lock is the quarterback of that team. You got Tyler Lockett, you got DK Metcalf, and Drew Lock is the savior.
Okay.
If you're Baker Mayfield, I try to get up to Seattle, frankly.
All right. Let me stop you right there, sir. Now, Cleveland definitely did Baker Mayfield wrong. I mean, this is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about. He's drafted number 1 overall and takes the team back to the freaking playoffs. And they beat Pittsburgh of all teams. Yeah. That's like one of their biggest rivals. They kick it to Pittsburgh, and he gets hurt. And they're just like, oh, he's done. Yep, no, he stinks. I'm sorry. How many injuries did Baker Mayfield have this year? Like 11?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And he played through all of them all. He's one tough guy. And he's one tough fella.
I mean, I'll give that to him. I mean, listen, I clowned on him a whole lot, and frankly, I'll probably clown on him again. But but you know what? A spade is a spade. You know what? A spade is a spade, and the Browns did him dirty, and I think that, he frankly deserves better than that.
I think he needs to go to a team that really appreciates what he put his body through and appreciated what he did for that organization. And he definitely has the mentality for it, and I think that he could be very successful.
Yeah.
But now, you mentioned Seattle. Would him be in Seattle be a great fit? Yes. There's a lot of weapons out there. You got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Rashad Penny's their running back currently. Had a great end of the year. Hopefully he can do that through 17 games. So we'll have to wait and see. I got a great coach. Pete Carroll's been to the promised land. He's pretty good. He's pretty decent coach. I think he's terrible, but he's pretty good.
He puts the numbers. He puts some teams together.
He does. He can, and he's very big on defense, and that team can definitely rebuild that defense to a championship caliber defense. No doubt.
Yeah.
Just the history they have, I think they could attract free agents. Like, hey, we've been here before. We want you. We want to continue it, and we want you to be part of it. Boom, sold right there. Now, is Drew Lock the guy? You say no. I say
no.
I say a big maybe.
He's not.
He's in Denver, and he doesn't really have the greatest of coaches. Yeah, the John Elway is there. They got pretty decent management, but who did those guys have as quarterbacks? Peyton freaking Manning.
Yeah.
Now they got Russell Wilson. They've had great quarterbacks. But how have they done with quarterbacks? You don't need a superstar to win in this league. You need a guy that can get the job done.
Oh, yeah,
I really think Drew Lock can get the job done with the pieces that he has around him. We'll have to wait and see. And he's got a great coach that worked with a young quarterback and won with a young quarterback, and that was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was still making a name for himself. He was great. He was good, but he wasn't fantastic. He had his problems. And I think Drew Lock has a little bit of experience, a little bit more experience. Now, going to Seattle, I think it could benefit him and the Seahawks. But if I'm the Seahawks, I still look at Baker Mayfield. And if you can get both those guys on the roster competing for a starting job, the best man is the most hardworking guy is going to win, no doubt.
Yeah.
So I think it could be a great quarterback competition.
I mean, listen, you make a good point. I think that, Denver really isn't known for developing quarterbacks. They're known for getting them in the door. Obviously, Elway's its own situation, but that was a long time ago now at this point.
Almost 30 years ago?
Close to it now, yeah. So that's a long time ago at this point. A lot of those guys that developed him, and frankly, Elway didn't need a lot of developing. He just had that natural talent from the get-go. Yep. But, Peyton Manning already had a Hall of Fame legacy before he ever stepped foot in Mile High. Russell Westbrook, God, no, his career is finished. But Russell Wilson, on the other hand, also has a very similar legacy. He's, won a Super Bowl with Seattle. He is a great quarterback. I think that he's going to do great things with the Broncos. Drew Lock, I think, will maybe have a chance to improve with the Seahawks, but I don't know by how much. Baker Mayfield, was able to develop decently in Cleveland. I think getting him out to Seattle would really just open up a lot of doors for them. I mean, Carolina could still be an option for him. I just don't know. I just feel like he'll have less there. I mean, if he's able to control his destiny, I would just say the Seahawks for me would be the favorite to go to.
Let me think. If there's a team on Baker Mayfield to go to, yes, the Seahawks. But off the top of your head, is there any other team that really rings a bell?
Who?
Is there? I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me, don't say anything. Is there a team that you can think of that Baker Mayfield will be a good asset and or could provide for that team? Is there really one?
I mean, the only thing I could think of would maybe be the Texans. They currently have Davis Mills, who had a pretty decent season last year. I'll give it to him, but I think that Baker Mayfield could definitely be an improvement there. Do the Texans want to improve? But do the Texans want to?
Houston found one. Houston found one. Houston found I think the needle in the haystack, and I think Davis Mills could be a solid guy. Now, you need to surround him with talent, which they don't have. And they need to surround him with coaching, which they don't really have.
Yeah.
And they need to surround him with defense, which they don't really have.
Yeah.
So they need to build. I really think that Davis Mills could be a solid quarterback and could win in this league, but they really need to go all in on him, and they can't be like, well, maybe. But we were looking at this guy for this amount of time, but we're going to go back to you. No, it's got Davis. You're our starter. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's final. We're going to build around you. What can we do to help you win? And then they really sit down and talk about this. It's like, this guy's going to add to my deep ball. This guy's going to add slants. I can hit these better. This guy's going to take a little bit of stress off me because he's a running back. Boom, bam, boom, done. Now, adding Baker Mayfield to that situation, not going to do well for them. I really think they should stick with Davis Mills. And like I said, there's no other team in this league that really is like screams they need a quarterback. Carolina really doesn't need one. They got Sam Darnold. I really don't think they should go anywhere near Baker Mayfield based off of what Robbie Anderson said. But Seattle's the only team that really makes full sense. Most of these other teams in the league have quarterbacks. I'm like 90%, 95% sure every team in this league has a quarterback that they can be like, all right, we can give this guy the keys and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like sit here and think of most teams. Washington's got one.
Yeah.
The Jets have one. The Jaguars have one. Miami's got their guy. Kansas City's obviously got their guy. Buffalo, New England, Cleveland, obviously, barring some situations. Pittsburgh even found their guy. Tennessee's got their guys. They got Tannehill and Willis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think they got some good. It's definitely gonna be a log jam across the league for for Baker Mayfield to find a spot, at least as a starter. That's the thing. As a starter, I did see something. I saw something, and I'm gonna give him credit for it. It was from a fellow Bryant student, Duke Tong. I don't know if you've run into him, Tyler, but
okay.
Has
saw the
Tong,
face. I saw the face.
Tong Talking Sports is the name of his show at Bryant, and he ended up coming out and said that he thinks that Baker Mayfield could try to rebuild his value as a backup in a similar way that Jameis Winston and Teddy Bridgewater rebuilded their values as backups by going to the LA Rams, the Super Bowl champions, and backing up Matthew Stafford. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Just a waste.
Yeah.
Complete waste. I think if that's the case, he's going to go to a great coach, and obviously the Rams could fit, but I just think it could be a waste of time for him. I think Baker Mayfield is a starter in this league, but he needs to fit in the right place, and I think Seattle's a great place for him. Seattle's out of the news. They're not really a big market, and I think that's exactly what Baker Mayfield needs. Cleveland isn't the biggest market, but it's also the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
That solely makes it a big market because they always stink.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you got teams like the New York Jets and New York teams, LA teams, even Boston teams, always in the news. Yeah. Always. Those are the three biggest markets in all of sports. And I think you got someone like Cleveland that's all in sports people's mouths because they're so just bad.
Yeah.
And obviously when LeBron was there, they were a little bit more in the headlines. But I think going to a place like Seattle that's a little quieter, out of the news, you can really focus on yourself. It's a quieter place to be. I think he can really focus on his game, focus on his team, and if he really wants to be the starter, he can, and he wants to win in this league, there's his chance. Yeah. If he really stinks, well, then he stinks. Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah, but Tyler,
I think that's the best opportunity.
Yeah, Tyler, I got one more potential opportunity for you, and I see this one kind of a little bit fleeting, but I see it as a potential option for Baker to rebuild his value. And you mentioned how Baker Mayfield went out there and won a playoff game for the Cleveland Browns, and he did it by beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers just drafted Kenny Pickett, but in your mind, what would stop them from turning around and saying, hey, why don't we get this guy to have as a placeholder, develop Pickett a little bit more? Because from what I've seen, it looks like he's going to need a little bit of time to develop and, get Baker in the system.
Because they already got Trubisky, and Trubisky's won before. He's been to the playoffs before. Trubisky has, I believe. Yeah. I think he's been to the playoffs. Yeah, no, they lost to the Eagles. Yeah, he's been to the playoffs. He knows what it takes to get there. And I think Trubisky is that placeholder, and I think Trubisky is smarter than Baker Mayfield when it comes to football IQ, which is exactly what you need when it comes to when you have a young guy. And I think it's that situation could end up very similar to Kansas City. You got Alex Smith when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. Sat a whole year behind him, and Kansas City did pretty well, and they played extremely well. I mean, they had at a point where they put Patrick Mahomes in a game against Denver at the end of the year because they're like, well, we don't really need to win, so we'll put you in on there. And I remember that they sat Alex Smith, like, boom, there you go, there's your opportunity, and he never looked back. So I think that situation in Pittsburgh could end up being very similar. You're like, all right, Trubisky, we want you to help teach him just a little. You're the starter, so you need to focus on that. But I want you to just maybe little things that this guy needs
Show
to
him
pick
the
up
ropes.
on. Show them where they are. Don't show them how to use them. Just show them where they are.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, and I think a very similar situation in Tennessee. That's the way it ends up. No matter what Tannehill says, that's gonna be the situation.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think Seattle is the only spot where I see you could say something for like a team like maybe Minnesota to give Kirk Cousins a little bit of motivation to be like, dude, you need to win. Like you have proven to be a star caliber quarterback in this league, and you have nothing to show for it. No accolades. So I think maybe you bring in a guy like that to maybe being like, all right, you know what? I got to step up my game. I want to. This is my job.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of it could be a little bit of a kick in the ass for Kurt.
Yeah,
for Kirk. But outside of that, I really can't think of any other options in my mind. Seattle has to be destination number one for him. If
all these teams have quarterbacks, and most of these teams have plans.
Yeah. So if he can find a way there, I think that's his best possible option. So, Tyler, great conversation with you today, man. Unfortunately, we are now down to the wire, which means that we're going to wrap up what we talked about on today's episode and get you guys on your way.
On your merry way.
Obviously, myself and Tyler Stringfellow, we're back on the show today to discuss Bradley Beal opting out of the final year of his deal and discuss whether the Celtics will actually pull the trigger on him. Maybe Mr. Bradley Stevens will get creative in free agency and make a move.
Not cool, bro. Not cool, bro.
Come on, man. I like that now. Maybe we should just call him Bradley.
That's all right. We got Russell Westbrook paying quarterback for the Denver Broncos.
Hey, man, listen, I think maybe Russell Westbrook should give the Broncos a call because I think he might have a better opportunity there. Honest to God, I swear.
Yeah, the water boy.
But even going off that, Kyrie Irving, and speaking of Russell Westbrook, him and Kyrie Irving opted into the final years of their deals. Westbrook is going to be making $37 million while Irving is going to be making $37 million. Obviously, ludicrous amounts of money for both of them, but that's just the way the NBA works nowadays. We discussed how Brian Windhorst claimed that trade talks with the Lakers could start up again if the situation in Brooklyn goes downhill. Mr. Stringfellow, I see your hand in the air. Do you have a question?
Can I just run through some NBA stuff real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so just real quick in the NBA, we got obviously Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving opting into their contracts, James Harden obviously opting out. We got the New York Knicks dumping a lot of their players, trading some of their players, trying to bring in some room for Jalen Brunson, who they think could be piece to their guy. You just want to talk about some other teams. You got, the Hornets maybe doing some stuff with Bridges, and and the Hawks trading for Dejounte Murray. They're trying to load up and get put in the championship conversation in the Eastern Conference and trying to challenge both the Bucks and the Boston Celtics for a championship. And that's all that I've got right now in the NBA.
Yeah, obviously, I think within the next couple hours, that may not be all you have in terms of the NBA. A lot more is going to change within the next couple hours, and I can only wait. Obviously, you talked about Dejounte Murray getting traded to the Atlanta Hawks. We discussed that on today's show. And finally, we wrap things up by talking about Baker Mayfield and his comments towards the Cleveland Browns about a possible reunion. It doesn't look like we're seeing anything happening with that. So, obviously, it was a great episode, Tyler. Glad to have you back on, man. So
glad to be back.
Yeah. So without any further ado, from Down the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
And I'm Tyler Stringfellow.
And we hope you guys have a great day. Take care and peace out.